So they come up to the surface, which they get in this hovercraft that takes them to the inner Earth, the Hollow Earth city of the Hopi Indians, where he lives there for a while, and he falls in love with this lady from the Hollow Earth and wants to marry her. He says he is the most beautiful person in the whole, you could imagine. He says the people of the Hollow Earth are beautiful people, especially the women. And he wanted to marry her. But before he married her, he said he'd like to go back to the surface world and get his things and then come back. And so Carl, he brought him back through that elevator, and blindfolded him, took him out of the Grand Canyon. He says, just come back to this place and yell out my name, and I'll come pick you up. Well, he got his things and went back to that place and yelled out Carl's name, and he never did come back for him. One of our expedition members went to visit him, and he says that when he got to that point, he had tears in his eyes because, he really loved that woman, wanted to marry her, but...
Well, from your what we were talking a little while ago, you were on an expedition to find the inner Hollow Earth in the Arctic. Am I correct in assuming that?
Well, I wrote my book. I sell it as an e-book on the internet, and the only reason I sell it is because people ask for it, and I have to cover the expense of the website. So one day, in my e-book, my last chapter, my chapter 15, I suggest that an expedition be outfitted and that we go up in the Arctic and find the polar opening and go to the Hollow Earth and prove it once and for all that the Hollow Earth does exist. So that's the suggestion I give in my book. So one day I get an email from a guy, Steve Curry, from the Expedition Company of Provo, Utah. And he belongs to the same church I do, the Latter-day Saint Church. We're called Mormons, but we call ourselves Latter-day Saints. But he when he was young, he was about 15. His father had read that book by Raymond Bernard about the Hollow Earth, and he told his family that he wanted to fit out an expedition to the North Pole and find that polar opening and go in. And the family, they didn't know what to think of it. He didn't put much credence in it when he was 15 years old, but when he inherited the expedition company from his father and was taking, at one point he was taking some people on down the Zompo Gorge on these river rafting expeditions. Right. He would go all over the world doing these expeditions, and in Tibet, the Tibetan guide told them what they did is they found this hidden falls over there, and the Tibetan guide was telling the history behind this hidden falls. That behind the hidden falls is this cavern that goes to Agartha, and he was telling them about how in the late 1800s the king of the inner world came out through that cavern and met with his ancestors of the Tibetans, and they told him that some point in the future their tribes would come out to the outer world to help establish world peace. Well, he got interested in the Hollow Earth again at that point, and Steve Curry, when he got back to Utah, he looked up on the internet and he found my website, and he called me and he wanted to know if anybody had made an expedition to the Hollow Earth. And I said, well, several people have tried, but none of them has succeeded. So he wanted to know if I would help him put together an expedition. So I suggested that we take a seaplane, but it would only take a very few people. And he decided that it'd probably be better if we could take a Russian nuclear icebreaker, which they were taking. They're taking people to the pole, tourists to the pole almost every year. after the breakup of the Soviet Union. And so, yeah, I says, well, okay. And so he put together his website on the Voyage to the Hollow Earth, and I helped him do some advertisement on the internet, and we had about 40 people signed up when he got cancer, brain cancer, and in a couple of months he was dead.
Wow. And you had about 40 people signed up to go on this expedition to find Hollow Earth.
Yeah. Well, the family canceled the expedition, and they returned everybody's money, and one of the expedition members was a physicist. He's also Mormon, Latter-day Saint, Dr. Brooks Agnew. Mm-hmm. And he says, well, what are we going to do now? And I said, well, I'm not an expedition leader or organizer. I'm just an author. And he says, well, can I take over the lead of the expedition? And I said, well, if you want to, we'll have a vote and see how many people of the expedition members would like to be in favor of it. So we did. I didn't know all of them, so some of them had contacted me. And so we had a vote, and yeah, everybody voted him in as expedition leader. So Dr. Agnew, he's been working on it ever since, but his method of raising the money, I don't think is one which really works, because his attorney told him that he should just ask for donations. Yeah.
And it says from the book I have there, you're probably going to need somewhere in excess of $2 million for this expedition. Does that sound a figure kind of out of place, or?
No, that's about what it was. And, the ship can hold about 100 people, and we had just about enough people to do the expedition under Steve Curry. He was selling seats on the Yamal for about $25,000 apiece, and yeah, we were close. In fact, we had planned to do an overflight. He had chartered an airliner to fly over to the Arctic so that we could take some video of the polar opening. We wanted to pinpoint exactly where it's located, because there's a difference of opinions of where it is up there exactly. And but then he got brain cancer and died on us, so that didn't come to pass. Later, I contacted retired Colonel Billy Woodard over here in Nevada. He was living at that time, and he claimed that he's been to the Hollow Earth through a cavern connection underneath Area 51. He worked for the military. He was stationed at Area 51 for 11 and a half years, mm-hmm. and he was put in charge of the Hollow Earth file there, and he says that the Hollow Earth people requested that he be allowed to go in one of their tunnel trains. Apparently, about level 26, while they were digging under Area 51, they broke into one of the tunnel systems of the Hollow Earth there, and the giant Hollow Earth people requested Billy to go on a trip to the Hollow Earth. They had a message that they wanted to give our military, and they wanted some representative to go. Mm-hmm. So Billy went, he says, 4 times in their tunnel trains to the Hollow Earth, to their capital city, which is the Garden of Eden. I asked him where it was located, and he thought a moment, and he says, well, it's somewhere over by Kansas, under 800 miles down on the inner surface, which is close to where us Latter-day Saints believe that the original Garden of Eden was. Is in Jackson County, Missouri, only it's not on the surface, it's on the inner surface where Olaf Jensen found it, the Norwegian explorer.
Now, technically, I guess you wouldn't have to go to the Arctic to find this entrance, because technically, what you're telling me, that there probably is an entrance to the Hollow Earth around Area 51 that the military has known for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. You know, the military has, they sent Colonel Billy Woodward, they sent Admiral Byrd, who knows how many other people they've sent to the Hollow Earth. 1956, Admiral Byrd flew through the South Polar opening to the inner world, and then in 1947 he flew through the North Polar opening. And in one of those flights to the inner world, the story came back to us that he was his airplane was sighted by some flying saucers that took control of his craft and landed him near an inner Earth city. He was taken before the government officials, and they told him that they had a message that they wanted him to bring back to our government, and that was that they didn't approve of our use of nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. So what we need to understand is that these people of the Hollow Earth, they claim that they are the guardians of this planet for the Creator, and that they ever since that time they have been sending their flying saucers out to prevent nuclear war. I believe actually they have prevented nuclear war. Flying saucers have intercepted missiles. They have stopped, shut down missile silos. They've even intercepted and blew up a nuclear weapon that our military sent to the moon.
Well, that's very interesting because, as you mentioned, there is a lot of UFO activity, especially around areas of unrest, especially around war-torn countries and wars going on. So it's very interesting that you brought that up, Rodney, because there's been a lot of sightings of UFOs, especially around places of unrest that war has developed.
Well, yeah, during Second World War, the fighters that were dropping bombs over Germany, they would see these, what they call foo fighters, were UFOs. They were probably flying saucers from the Hollow Earth, checking up on the wars that we carry on. The people in Vietnam said that they saw flying saucers all the time over there, watching what we were doing there. I've done a study of sightings of flying saucers, and the place where they're sighted the most, the highest frequency of flying saucers, are at military bases, military installations, or places where nuclear weapons are stored.
Well, we're just about out of time, Rodney. This interview went really, really quick. Is there any light on the subject about this actual expedition going to the Arctic, or is it on hold for a while until you raise the necessary funds?
Well, like I say, Dr. Brooks Agnew took over the expedition. He renamed it the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. He stuck with the idea of going with the nuclear icebreaker, chartering it from the Russians, but they require a $700,000 deposit. The December before the expedition in the next year. Well, this past December was the last time that was going to be possible, because they're going to decommission their nuclear icebreakers. And I've tried to contact Dr. Agnew. He hasn't spoken to me in a year or more. I don't know. I don't think that he even has received enough donations to pay the down payment. So I'm pretty doubtful that it's even possible to do it with these nuclear icebreakers. It would probably have to be done some other way.
But in your mind, this entrance really does exist to the Hollow Earth. There's actually a civilization living there right now.
Well, there's a fellow I talk about in my book. His name is Reinhold Schmidt. He lived in Los Angeles, and in about 1958 he had just read the book All About the Flying Saucers by Frank Scully, and he says about that time he started receiving these telepathic messages to go outside the city and go into this abandoned rock quarry, and he drove in there, and he was in there just waiting. And in the afternoon, a silver flying saucer swoops down, lands in the quarry. A tall man gets out and motions to him if he wants to go with him. So he